Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom podcast. I am your host, Tommy Mock, with always my awesome co-host, Mr. Craig Borden. How are you doing, sir?
Buddy, how could we not be having a better time? It's Victory Monday.
It's Victory Monday. Go Bills! And I won't sing like I did last week, but I'm telling you, I'm looking. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to next weekend. I'm scared if all of the rumors are true or the conspiracies are true that the refs are part of the Chiefs. Then we may be in for
it. Makes me wonder if they were actually wearing red and black all weekend, is all I'm going to say against the Texans. So, but there is that. But to that point, let's go Bills. We'll see how much fun it's going to be. Worst case scenario can't be any more nail biting than it was this weekend against the Ravens. Just saying.
So, with that being said, we have we dodged the TikTok ban, which only lasted for about maybe 2 minutes. I don't know.
12 hours ballpark at the most.
But
good deal.
But anyway, so I'm not going to get into any politics stuff because that's not what we're here for. Craig, why don't you go ahead and tell us what our episode is for tonight?
So we have a friend of mine, Will Cole, who's going to be joining here in 0.2 seconds because I'm going to click him in here to the chat. But to that point tonight, Tommy, we are going to talk all things Magic the Gathering, and Will is going to be our tour guide through the worlds here because in the midst of this whole thing, I know I've only had a few friends like Will that have informed me of said game, but I have never played it. It happens to have a lot of the many things that I enjoy about card games. So we're going to see what happens to go here. We're going to have a talk. We're going to get, like I said, a good tour, talk about the collectability and all the fun here. And on that note, with no further ado, let's bring Will in.
Hey, welcome, Will.
Hey. What's up, fellas?
Magic, you just literally showed up.
Very good.
I use a spell.
I was torn this morning if I wear Buffalo Bills gear or floss the Magic shirt, so I had to choose one.
Well, we're glad that you did. So, Magic the Gathering. So, real quick, Will, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then tell us the basic setting of what Magic the Gathering is, and then how you got involved with it.
Sure. The super quick 30 seconds is I've known Craig for what, 10 something years through work and otherwise. And
sorry about that for that, but here you are.
Yeah. And he told me about your show when it started. What are you guys, 11, 12 episodes in now? Maybe more?
I think this is the 12, my lucky number. Yeah.
And you're all into, collectability and nerd stuff. And so many of the episodes I'm jiving. I'm picking up what you're laying down, whether it's, obscure toy lines, toys that got discontinued, collectibles, nerddom.
Yeah.
I mean, the SNL movies. So I think that we got a lot of common stuff going on there. And I thought to myself, what's the one collectible nerd thing that I probably know better than most people? And that's Magic the Gathering.
Nice.
And there we go. Hence the reason you are here too. Like I said, the reason we have this show, Will, Tommy and I had this idea that him and I wanted to have a podcast about something for a really long time. The question was, what was the something? We settled on many as something because we were like, you know what? Let's just talk to fans about what their passions are and see how much fun we can have, not just, learning about the things that we love, but learning about all these things that our friends, family members, random people we encounter like at toy shows and whatnot. And to that point, Will, obviously, here to chit chat Magic the Gathering with us this evening, and we're looking very forward to learning. I'm going to be learning a lot because this is mostly new to me.
Same here. I have zero knowledge of Magic the Gathering. I've always been intrigued by it. Same thing with Dungeons and Dragons. I played Dungeons and Dragons a few times. So some of the questions that I'm going to ask you today is how are there similarities to Magic the Gathering and the way it's played in conjunction with, say, a Dungeons and Dragons type game, or is it completely just, it has nothing, there's no similarities, there's no game mechanics that are the same. So I'm interested because there are a lot of card based games out there that are just so in depth, and I know that Magic the Gathering is one of them. And so I don't
the
even
Venn diagram between Magic and D&D, huge
Yeah.
amount of overlap. Like they're not
Oh,
the exact
really?
same thing, but like that's what hooked me. What actually hooked me was the kind of fantasy element of it. So Magic the Gathering is a card game. It's kind of the first collectible card game. And I will tell you, when I got hooked would have been about October of 1994. The game was still pretty new, and I
It's
was
been
a
just
young
a-
little shrimp. And I
Mhm.
was at a Boy Scouts camp out, and some of the older scouts had these cool cards, and they had, decks with red cards or black cards, and they had minotaurs and dragons. And 10 or 11-year-old Will was like, whoa, that's super cool. And then, for Christmas that year, I asked mom and pops for, hey, can you get me a starter deck? And they did. And I cracked open 2 starter decks way back then. So that's probably why I'm a good expert on Magic the Gathering. It's not because I'm smart. It's just because I've been doing it for 30 years. And it's just a lot of stuff to passively suck in and, enjoy and digest and all that. So it's been a big part of my life. It's very cool.
That's awesome. So
That's really good.
so again, I'm not really sure how old this. I'm going to assume that at least it predates like the Pokemon card game, here in the U.S. So can you tell us what the history is? Like, when did it really kind of make its debut, and how it took off?
Yeah. And a lot of that ties into some of the collectability, and also, if we want to get into it, like the super big dollar value things. Like you guys know, there's the Millennium Falcon kit that's worth $2,000, and there's ones that aren't. I missed that wave by just like months, because the game came out in 1993, and it was around for, actually it was huge in like the West Coast. That's where it launched. So just the way distribution works out in like Washington, Oregon, California, for that first year, it was easier to get than, say, upstate New York or anything like that.
Right.
It really started to take off in like 95, 96. So I can't say I was in ground level. I wasn't like getting those, super, super first run print cards, but like maybe second, third print cards were available. And, some of those, I watched them go up in value as the years went on. So Magic just celebrated 30 years, last year, 2 years ago.
Wow.
So it's been around. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I figured a good way to
It makes me wonder. I remember hearing about this when I was in college, so right around the 2000s and whatnot is when I started seeing playing it. At least that was the first my exposure to it, and maybe it was just because I got stuck more into the LAN party end of the dorm room wing versus the people playing the cards on the other end. But it is what it is. But that was my first exposure to it, and it was one of those things that maybe just from, I'll just say, first face value. I saw, okay, I had to buy all these cards. I had to learn the game. I had to learn the strategy. It was just, at that time, a little much for me. Video games, I pay the $50 and I get to keep playing. So
that brings up a good point.
I was shocked that it was like that old when I was looking up and doing some of the research, just so we were able to have a better interview here beforehand. So go ahead, Tommy.
So with that being said, the gameplay mechanics, how does that work? And are they like really quick, matches that you can do, or do you have these like in reference to Dungeons and Dragons, can you have these like week-long campaigns that just keep going and going and going, or is it just simply, we're going to have a match, and this match can go as long as I have cards that I can still play on the deck, kind of thing? How does this work?
So there are different formats. That's one of the cool things to bring up. I'd say the most common way to play it is just a deck of 60 cards. You make it ahead of time. You can have 4 of each copy of each unique card. And those games go pretty quick. You can usually play a match, which is best out of 3, in, say, 40 minutes. There's actually simpler versions where you're playing draft cards and draft decks. and you can bang those games out in like 10 minutes sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But then the other end of the spectrum, that far D&D end, like I've gone over to my buddy Sean's house and we started a game at 9 o'clock, and it's like 10 o'clock and we played 2 turns, and then it's like midnight and we're at like 4 turns. Like, so there's certainly Magic games I've played that have gone 4, 5, 6 hours. I don't know if I've gone too many games over 4 hours. At some point I just kind of say, like, nuts to this, I'm going to have a beer.
Is that to the point where it's like a Monopoly game that never ends? Is it one of those things?
That's a good way to like know your true friends, is if you actually play a game of Monopoly to the very end. Like, I'm bitter, I'm going to bankrupt you. I will say we've done that, but not a ton over the years. Not a ton.
Yeah. So to the point of the anniversary fund that you had mentioned, I have to show a couple of comments here that are probably some of your friends, Will, that are on the show. Eric Brandt, 1993, 7th grade for him.
Yeah, I think me and Eric are exactly the same age.
There you go. So in the midst of that, we
I'm
also
the
have
oldest person here again.
The one that was the first in our chat this evening. Sick shirt from Bum of Tennis.
I'm gonna guess that's my buddy Nick.
So,
and I should probably clarify that some of the guys watching, commenting in, we still get together. I mean, now we're grown ups with work, wife, life, kid. But Magic is actually kind of like a thread that's held us together since 1990, whatever it was. Like, I can think of literally dudes I play with. Again, we get together maybe twice a year now, but we were, at the lunch table in middle school in 7th grade playing Magic cards. And like, my friend Jameson would have a Siobhan Dragon and I would have this card, and we do this and we do that. And here we are 25 years later, just doing the same stuff, maybe slightly different cards, but still having fun doing it. And I don't know.
It's probably some more adult stories maybe around the beverage of choice. You went from the milk carton in the lunchroom to maybe having a beer.
There's definitely there's a few I can't put out on the internet, but I will tell you that you guys know collectible cards, right? I mean, Craig, you do pack cracks for your stuff. And I love it. There's a thing called a mythic rare. So usually in about 1 out of every 8 packs, you'll get a mythic rare, right? That's about the distribution. Okay. So in a given weekend of playing cards, we might see 3 or 4 of those, maybe total. We made a rule that whenever we got a mythic rare, whoever opened that pack had to do a shot, those little, mini 1.5 ounce whiskey or rum or vodka bottles. And poor little Charlie, I don't know if Charlie's going to hop on, but that weekend it was Charlie got all the mythic rares on Friday night. And so whatever deck he made Friday night, he was barely physically able to play for a few games that night, because that many mini shot bottles plus the normal beverage consumption was, it was a bit much.
That is really cool that you guys still get to do that, and that's the point of these kind of games. And like we were talking about, all the fandom stuff that Tommy and I even started this whole thing for. It's that bringing people together, that community piece. That was what we always want. That's what we really want to showcase. And the fact that we're hearing you tell these stories of it's the same group of the gangs together. I use that term from like Sunny in Philadelphia. Got to get the gang, go play Magic cards, or the gang's going to the toy show, or
the gang pulls a mythic rare. That would be the name of that.
Exactly. And then ...
So I got it.
This is unprompted, off script. Danny DeVito plays Magic cards.
Really?
That is pretty fun. But and to that point, with all
fact.
the points that you mentioned, I'm not shocked about that either, because of it's a community that's been here for so long. All that it's gonna get into everybody's lives at that point. And to that point, if that's what Danny DeVito likes to do outside of yelling at Mac and all the gang, there's the win. Post Malone apparently is another one that we were getting DM'd in.
So get this. Post Malone is probably the most famous celebrity that also plays Magic. And Eli's my buddy that couldn't make it tonight to join in. I wanted him to be the other commentator. Eli went to a Post Malone concert up in Canada and legit got to play Magic cards with Post Malone. Like, that was the after concert activity.
And yet he can't be on the show to tell us the story. These are the stories that we want to hear too, because he's
probably still sleeping off that hangover from the Post Malone after concert party. That was a lot, man.
So
It was a lot.
so Mad Kid
fan out.
Mad Kid 45 said Post Malone spent $2 million on a card. Are there like rarity cards out there that like
It
that
gets
are
nuts.
just
It gets nuts.
so I have to ask you this because I've had the benefit of living all over and being I'm now that I've heard how you kind of dated yourself, so I am the elder statesman here. I'm old, but
We love you, buddy.
I don't. So besides like the typical big box stores that we have, like Walmart and Target, that where you can get Magic the Gathering. I remember a store, and I don't know if you guys had it on the East Coast, but when I was living on the West Coast, we had a store that was in the malls called Wizards of the Coast. Did they have that here on the East Coast, where you could get like all these like really cool like novelty cards and stuff like that, and games that you wouldn't necessarily see at a big box store? Did they have Wizards of the Coast here in upstate?
Great question. And the answer is yes, briefly. Way back when they put it, so everyone knows Destiny USA in Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
Back when that was Carousel Mall, down in the basement, they briefly had a Wizards of the Coast store for like 2 years. And I remember begging and pleading with my mom and dad, like, hey, if I mow the lawn and do the laundry and blah, 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 would you drive me an hour and a half to go to the store to get some pieces of cardboard? And they're like, all right, go mop that floor. We got you.
Yeah, no,
it could be worse. You could be out smoking and drinking.
There is a lot worse things. I actually, funny enough, just had a little trip down memory lane in the baseball card avenue. So my nephews are 6 years old and 4 years old for my brother. And my mom wanted to buy some cards for them for Christmas and whatnot. So I'm like, okay. She's like, where do I go? And I'm like, well, what do you want? And there are still a few hobby shops that sell stuff and Magic cards included here in Rochester, thank God. So I drove over to Greece to Game On Sports collectibles, and we walked out with a pile of Yankees cards for the kids. But we bought the individual ones, and I want to say there was a more of a, I'll say, going toward the comic books and fantasy end out in Victor. I forget what they're called that sold Magic cards. Maybe I'm wrong.
Store in Victor?
Yeah, it was right there in the where the Salvatore's is. It's a very little store behind everything, comic book store.
Oh.
But they sell Magic cards, I thought. But anyway,
yes.
Is there a place that you go to get your stuff here in Rochester, or are you just strictly buying online, looking for, I'm just going to quote unquote, a Black Lotus from Eric?
Two things on that. One, there is a place I go to, and I don't want to, advertise for them, but I mean, Millennium Games, they used to be just around the corner from work. For me, it was like literally a mile drive, and they've been growing and growing and growing over the past 10 years.
Huge.
Yeah, they're huge. But I remember way back in the day. Well, yeah, my lights just came.
You must have moved too much.
I think they now count to be the biggest game store in the world.
They said at least East Coast, I believe. I don't know. It really would not shock me that they are the biggest, because that's a big damn space. Yeah. Have you went there and done any of their league nights or anything for any of that kind of stuff for the Magic? I figured you do. So come on, give us everything.
So now we got to do like a cross-section thing. There's an x-axis and a y-axis. First, what are you playing? That 60 card format, we call that standard. That's probably the most easy and accessible, and medium complexity, can do games quick. You can also play that in like tournaments, and Millennium would routinely get big ass tournaments of like 140, 150 people, sometimes more. And I would do those, man, but that turns into a grind pretty quick, because you have to play like 8 rounds or 9 rounds, and I would be super dialed in and focused for like the first 3 or 4 rounds, and I'd be like, yeah, I started 4-1, I got this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I've been playing cards for 6 hours. Like I should go outside. Like I should go get some fresh air.
So we have a shop here in Canandaigua that actually sells Magic the Gathering cards. They're
Smitty's?
like I think it might be Smitty's. Yeah, because
Smitty's is right on Main
like
Street. I've been there a couple, 2-3 times.
yeah. Then that's the place. Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been in there a few times.
there's a LGS, local game store, and I'd say most people in the Magic community try and support the LGS
Mhm.
because the LGS has tables, and they say, "Sure, come on in, play your card game," and to kind of reciprocity. If you buy your $30 worth of packs there, you can play there. If you buy all your
Mhm.
stuff online and you go there to play, they don't stay in
There's
business.
$10.
So I think most people are they're trying to have their local store stay in business. So I think a
And
lot
seeing
of
we're in
people,
shout out mode. Keep talking, Will.
that must be Charlie then throwing out Unplugged Game Store in Syracuse. Yeah, I mean, we're spoiled for the whole Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Albany run. There's so many good stores to scratch this itch.
Yeah, and that's the point. It as a baseball card collector, similar. I feel like I got to go to the local shops and make sure I'm buying the cards and buying the boxes. I hate going to Target. I hate going to Walmart to get the cards and everything like that because I just feel like I'm feeding the machine and I'm going to get crap.
Mhm.
And I know I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious what you got hiding. So, but on that note, there's that mentality, like you said, it's almost like you have another friend, right? You go to your shop, go get your cards, sit down, maybe even play with them in certain occasions and goof around. I know a couple of times when I went to We the Hobby here in Rochester before they went to their big new building, opening up packs in their facility there and getting just excited and hyped for whatever we all open together anyways, right? Because they're opening stuff for their shows, they're open with people that show it in store. It's good stuff. We lose you, Will?
So, Craig, the comic books, the comic book store that you were talking about in Victor, and I remember this place because I've actually been there a few times when I lived in Victor. Is called Two Kings Comics.
Ooh.
So, yep.
I have not been to that.
I was like, it's royalty.
That's on. So it's off of Main Street, Victor. It's 171 West Main in Victor. I was walking distance from where I lived, so I could go there, and it's in like a little shopping plaza that's got a Salvatore's and a Dunkin' Donuts. You can't miss it. It's nestled in a nice little corner. It's a pretty cool place, and I think they also host Magic games and
they do
even
they do comics as well, or they like your go-to.
Yep. It's like a straight up comic book store, but I think they also do Magic nights, and I think they do a Pokemon night as well.
That sounds similar to the one I grew up with when I was but young, quite small. They were a comic book store first, then action figures, and then Magic was third. But then all of a sudden, for a few years, I think Magic was straight paying the bills for them.
So real
one
quick,
of our friends that we met at the toy show, toying around in Jamestown, New York, Navigator plays. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think I got the right card here. The World of Collection. I think that was the gentleman you talked to at the toy show back at the Village Gate, Tommy. But I actually ran into him at Toy Fest the other day, and he's the one that sold me Jake and Elwood.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
Cheers, bud. We gotta have you on.
Yes, definitely. So Will, I got a question for you when it comes to again, we talked about gameplay. Is this one of those kind of like cutthroat games where if you play a certain card, you lose it? Or is there a way of like when you play cards, you lose them? Or like if somebody, again, I have zero knowledge of this game and how the mechanics are.
That's a great question.
Do you play for cards?
When it first came out, they had an ante rule. Everyone had a cut randomly. One card from your deck got put to the side, and whoever won got both those cards. That was considered gambling. I think, Craig, we talked about this, that a lot of high school cafeteria, maybe the Boy Scouts said, well, that's not good. And if a kid, if mom and dad just bought you a $50 card and you went out and played a game 2 days later and lost it, and they found out you're going to get your ass chewed out. So I think in like 96, 97, 98, they started phasing that out. It eventually became a no ante you're just playing for straight win-loss. But yeah, early years, that was the wild, wild west for sure.
That was the Wild
So,
West. It was Marvel and X-Men cards were the one that I remember trading around with people, and literally to the point where it's like, oh, Timmy got ripped off by somebody. Oh, okay, now we don't get to have any fun at lunch trading cards anymore.
Yep.
so were there any controversies with Magic the Gathering? So again, I harken back to the days of early D&D where parents thought it was, kids were getting introduced to Satanism and stuff like that. Were there any kind of controversies around Magic the Gathering that kind of had the same kind of context of, oh, we're introducing children to witchcraft and wizardry, and it's not has anything to do with Harry Potter.
So you mentioned the D&D angle of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
They actually, I think Magic was invented as a side game for people to play during D&D. So like if the party got split, right? 3 people went down this hallway, 2 went down this hallway. The 2 people that went down this hallway and weren't with the DM, they could play a quick game of Magic to kill 20 minutes. So the similarities are huge. The overlaps are huge. And yeah, there were controversies. Like there's a simple card called Unholy Strength. And it's an enchantment. So you have a creature, you bring out, like say you bring out a dragon. If you put Unholy Strength on a dragon, now you have a boss-ass dragon. That dragon's going to beat everyone. And it had a pentagram in the background in the first edition.
Yeah.
So second edition, they had the artist go back and redo the art, so they removed the pentagram. And for anyone that knew
That
it,
must be in this ballpark that our friends are talking about in the chat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Demonic imagery.
It's another
people
thing
like
where
Alice Cooper trying to kill
pendulum swing all this way. Parents did not like demons. They got rid of it for a few years, and then they brought them back. I don't know, what's early 2000s.
Yeah.
I mean, demons are definitely
when it was more politically acceptable, I guess, because nobody cares about any of that stuff anymore.
I think at that point it had just so much momentum that people aren't gonna get butthurt over something being called a demon.
There is that. So
but, I mean, that was the initial taste.
We're better off for it.
So when you play Magic, I don't want to nerd out too much on gameplay.
Do it. That's what we're here for.
The whole
we're introducing a whole new fandom.
It's based on 5 colors. I wonder, does my shirt show the 5 colors? Oh, there's the lights going off again. But like, there's white, blue, red, green, black. So like white would be the color of angels and knights and things like that. Black is the color of demons.
Something I actually learned in my homework. Isn't that also the planes that you can play on? They got to use to.
Yep.
See, did something. I did some of my homework for this interview. I'm not just a chill.
Local man does research and crushes it.
There it is.
Yeah, so it's very cool that you have these different themes too, and like each color kind of has not just creatures. Like red is dragons, okay, right? But red's also like fire, and red's about like I'm going to kill you quick. If I kill you at all. And if I don't kill you quick, I'm probably not going to kill you. Like if you stabilize against a red deck, you're probably going to win. Likewise, green is the color of like nature and forests. So green's like, I have no subtlety or speed. I'm just going to make huge fat dudes. And I'm just going to like try and be bigger than you and beat you up. Blue is all about trickery, things like that. Each one.
Okay, because I was going to say, it seems like you have a light and a dark side, and then you have elementals and stuff like that. So it's just, okay, I get it. Yeah.
And there's nuance.
So we do have the actual full question in the chat. So somebody our friend of the show would love you to just give us the blanket level. Like I said, I happened to learn in 18 minutes on a YouTube video, and I was like, okay, I can talk to this. So, but I have not played it to that point. But I love the idea that it is obviously you versus one player is all the time, correct? Or is it you can have teams or
there are different formats. I would say 80% of the time it's one-on-one tournament structure. You can play different formats, and there's a very popular format called Commander that lets you play 4 players or even more if you want. I think much of what I'm going to talk about for gameplay assumes one-on-one, just head-to-head.
Yeah. So assuming the one-on-one, because I would say that to our wonderful friend of the show here, Navigator Plays, let's assume the one-on-one. So from my understanding of what I got, you have your battlefield where you have you and I would each have our cards.
Yep.
You have your decks, which would in turn have our planes, and then everybody else that happens to quote unquote fill out the rest of your deck. Correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, the most basic level, this is a Magic card. You know, it says Magic.
Mhm.
They all
And
have
a
the
white.
same back, and then they've all got different text on the front. It's a little bit tough to do on the webcam, but we got red cards, black cards, green cards, blue cards. They're all up there. The 30-second premise is you are a planeswalker, meaning you can harness the powers of energy in the planes. You can make creatures or artifacts or lands, cast spells, make enchantments. And the idea is to defeat your opponent, kill your opponent. You each start with 20 life points, and then the stuff you do takes life points away from the other players. So if I make a huge dragon that's like this guy, let me just try and zoom in. I'm sure that's not the point here. We can pull all these up on a browser.
You're good.
But he's
So you got
a
your dragon.
dude that hits for 5. So if your whole plan is I'm going to make this huge dragon and I'm going to attack you for 5 points of damage for 4 times. 5 times 4 is 20. That's how I plan on killing you. There's a lot of different ways to get to that objective. You can make a bunch of small dudes. You can make one big dude. You could just cast all spells. Like I'm just going to throw a fireball at you. No creatures, just boom, fireball. There's like easily 10, 12, 15 different ways you can win the game. But the simple 30-second is they've got 20 life, you've got 20 life. I got to kill you before you kill me.
Is this a game that would be easy enough for, say, people like Craig, myself, and even our fan here, Navigator Plays, if we were to sit down with, say, a seasoned veteran such as yourself, would you be able to walk us through and say we have our own decks that we just cracked open, they're brand new cards, don't even have any wear on them, and say, would you be able to walk us through to where we could actually hold our own against another beginner or a novice player, to where we could actually know how to play a card? Is it an easy enough game so it's an easy enough game for a novice newbie?
The comment that just threw in is exactly what I was going to say. An hour to learn, a lifetime to master. The mechanics aren't that bad, especially if you have any familiarity with, other gaming system. If you've played board games before, you'll pick up on it pretty quick. A key is you want to probably play your first 10 games against equal, deck levels. Most decks that we play have things where you make a creature, then someone makes a bigger creature, then you cast a spell. But there's also just insanely degenerate decks that can do a ridiculous combo on turn 1 and kill you. So I would say, Tommy, for you, it would not be fun to have a deck where you're like, I'm going to make an elf and a rhinoceros, and someone else is like, I do this and this and this and this, and you're dead on turn 1. That's no fun. So as long as there's some early matching of the decks, the built constructed decks, hour to learn. I bet in 3 games you get most of the basics down, and after 10 games you understand the kind of tempo back and forth, who's up, who's down, who should attack, who shouldn't attack.
So that's a very good that's a very good question. There is game. So you have to play somebody who has a equal deck to you, so then you're not just losing in one turn. Is that possible? Is that it's not turn based? Like I built a dragon and I can do, but it's not turn based. Like I can actually, if I have a equal deck to you, but I still could be able to just build a dragon that will completely wipe you out in one turn. So there's
different formats. Most of what I would say talking about this game is standard. Standard is a type of format, and it uses the most recent 2 years worth of cards as a card pool. There's a format called vintage that lets you go all the way back to the beginning. So if you have those redonkulous rare cards from way back when, they do some things that were at the time fine, but as years have gone on, have become unbalanced. So I have sat down at a tournament where it's
nerfed,
where it's vintage. You're playing unnerfed, and you go in knowing I'm playing unnerfed against. So if someone has that ridiculous first turn combo kill, most people in the room knowing that tournament would come with answers to that. Where you run into problems if there's some new kid, some 11-year-old kid who his parents got him a starter deck a month ago, and he's played just enough games to know the rules. If he sits down against a degenerate combo kill person on turn 1 of a tournament, you're not going to have a good time.
Like, not going to have a good time. Eat some French fries.
If you're French frying your pizza, you're not going to have a good time. And that doesn't happen. And usually there's
in the comments.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Go ahead, Will. I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll bring it up.
At most tournaments, they actually have referees and judges to kind of help shepherd that thing. So if there's a kid that's, 10 years old going against a, 40-year-old man who's got the turn 1 combo kill, they'll kind of pull the kid aside and said, sorry, you lost. Maybe you should do this tournament on Thursday nights. That's more where you're at. So there's a lot of good shepherding in the community to make sure people don't get the bad feels.
So with those referees and everything, do you ever have anybody that kind of like looks and says, hey, let me take a look at your deck just to see, and then like you said, usher it ahead of time, or is it just like I'm going to go and play, and if
Tommy, you're getting deep. You're getting deep.
I know.
There are 30 years.
He wants to go, I think.
Of small. There are scandals over the years of people like sneaking in an extra card or taking out an extra card or doing these weird things for like incremental advantages, which to me is that for me and the folks that are like kind of listening in, that's not how to play. But when you get to that, there actually is a professional level of Magic where the prize pool is in the thousands of dollars for a one-day tournament, tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. So people do unscrupulous things, and they have judges to try and fight that. And I mean, a quick Google of Magic Pro cheating will probably give you enough scandal results to last till
flag.
Yeah.
We're bringing you back just so we can talk about that.
So we got a couple of comments I want to get to here in the chat. Is thank you for everybody for chiming in. This is easily one of the favorite things we love about our shows and everything, is being able to chit chat with everybody in the comments and the people we have on the show. One of your friends mentioned that there is an online game that's kind of similar to that as far as the Magic Arena on the app goes. So is that maybe an entry level thing for somebody to get a little bit of the gist of it before they go buy a stack of cards?
Oh, huge fan. I mean, think about it. When we started playing, this is just a sign of the times. I mean, I feel old as dirt sometimes when I see young kids that learned on Magic Arena. But back in 1993, computers, like, we were still doing Oregon Trail stuff. You know what I mean? So
yeah, just shooting buffalo.
Exactly. Just crossing the river.
God, I'm old.
The amount of rules packs and interaction.
I died of typhus.
Probably would not have. I don't think it was even supportable to like 2004 or 5. And then Magic Online probably got pretty big like 2008, 2009. So, I mean, it's been 15 years that they've had a tool that lets you do it in the digital version, which I don't do as much, because there was one December where I did that an extremely large amount of my time, and all of a sudden I
kind of rabbit hole.
It was one of those things where, like, what day is today? It's January 3rd. Dear God, what happened? I started playing Magic Online.
He's like freaking Robin Williams and Jumanji.
So I limit my Magic Arena intake. I give myself, medicated doses. But that's only because I'm a degenerate. So if given infinite time, I would play it for days on end. It's a great tool to learn the mechanics, though. Very good indeed.
There you go.
So with your physical. Oh, go ahead, Craig. Jump on.
We got one other one. Sorry. It says Deckmaster on the back of the cards. Is there a story there that I'm supposed to know?
Let's get a close up here. Deckmaster. I don't know. I think that's just a function of the Wizards of the Coast dudes started printing this game in 1993, and they're like, yeah, Deckmaster sounds rad. Print it. Ship it.
Dude, yes. With my dragon.
The fun part is this is the card back. This is the card back, and it kind of has always been. But at some point early in the game, they were going to do all the different expansions. Each new expansion would have a slightly different card back. And then someone realized, well, then we can't sell them all together. We can't mingle them all together. We need to have one uniform card back. Hence, whatever they did with that Deckmaster decision back in 1993, they're stuck with it for 32 years.
So I pulled it up, and the AI overview on Google says Deckmaster appears on Magic the Gathering cards because it was originally intended as a brand name for a whole line of trading card games by Wizard of the Coast, with Magic being just one of them. So I guess it's multiple. They're
Branch
meant
out
to
hasn't
have
happened,
multiple.
maybe.
Yeah.
So that's a good segue for me to say. I did some stats too, because I've been doing it. You never know what
Why
you
not?
don't know. How many unique Magic cards are there?
That was one of the ones I was curious about. Knowing
And-
what you said with that time frame, now it's only gotten me more curious.
Well,
Because I
there's
would
two
say,
answers here. There's how many functionally unique, meaning how many different cards, and then some of these
Mhm.
cards came out in 1994, 95. They might have reprinted them 4 or 5 or 6 times. So as far as functionally unique, 36,108.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
Wow.
man.
We actually had a pretty close guess here. 32,764.
Oh, if that's
in the
Charlie
chat.
saying that, Charlie might actually be right. Oh, it was a guess. It was a
There's
guess.
that.
32,764.
I'm just going to put that right there.
So the
So,
actual,
Will,
like, how many different
It was oddly
possible cards
precise.
could you buy? Meaning like a functionally unique card that got printed 5 or 6 times and might have a foily shiny version or an etched version. The answer of actually unique collectibles is just over 90,000. And this year they're going to cross over 100K, 100,000 unique collectible options.
and I'm assuming that all these cards are dated, so that means like the earlier cards are worth more, obviously.
Yep.
That leads me to my next question to you, Will, and making sure that nobody knows where you live and everything. What is the most valuable card you own, and how much is it worth?
So I can answer
that. You don't have to share that if you don't
No,
want
I can
to.
answer this question because I sold off some of mine. Sadly, I sold them off
There you go.
2016, literally to put a new roof on my house.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you must have done pretty well then, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, it wasn't all. So
Or
there's
good enough.
cards. We were talking about the Post Malone card. That's 2 million. That was literally a one-off. Only one was printed. That's like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory golden ticket. But there's a lot of cards out there that are worth, from the early days, in the thousands. But I think that's going to depend on your quality and condition, and like that's where you actually, like Craig, with baseball cards, something graded a 9 versus graded a 9.5 versus graded a 10. That's going to go from $1,000 card to a $2,000 card pretty quick.
And I pulled my first 1-of-1 card ever in my life the other day. And
What'd you get?
it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It is a guy I hate as a player, is Jose Altuve.
Okay.
But it is a print plate. So this is actually a hunk of metal, but it's
Huh.
there you go, 1-of-1.
Wow.
So but the fun weird thing about this is, to your point, I pulled this right brand new out of the pack. It's literally a hunk of metal. I can bend it, but it was pristine. It's all right because it was used for printing. There's a few scratches on it already. So if I sent this out to where I think you were going to go get graded, which I know they do probably with Magic cards, I know they do with Pokemon and other trading card games too. Do you still use it in a game? If you get a giant slab of plastic that says it's an 8 or 9 or a 10,
So
or you just keep it around your neck like frickin' what's his face, Logan Paul.
My trump card.
Gross.
So it's a
People
weird
went there.
thing. You're at these big ass tournaments with 100 people or 300 people. Like now, Millennium Games does big ones, but you can travel to like Baltimore, Chicago, Boston, and do even bigger tournaments, 300, 500,000 people. To be carrying around a deck that's worth $30,000 because all the cards are worth $500 each. Like, I don't know, man. I don't feel good about that. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to get it stolen. I don't want to get my room broken into. So that's why I kind of sold off a lot of mine that were worth more than $500. That's just me. A lot of people do get them graded and slabbed, but I don't know what. I'm not playing the market. I'm here to enjoy dragons and trolls and shit like that. And when it gets above $500, that's not my scene, man.
That's good stuff, though.
And you hear about people going to like Fanatics Fest or any of these things that are card shows and stuff. I forget what it was last year, but wasn't there a sports card show that got looted and there was like $2-3 million worth of cards that got stolen last year.
Yep.
They ended up catching the guys, but they didn't get all the cards back. So God knows where they went. And the thing that's even more wild, so let's say we sent one of these cards out to go get graded. They're not chipped, but they are barcoded and everything. So if that comes on the market somewhere, they're going to go, hey, that one was in this thieving, where are you selling it? They become quasi worthless if you're selling them to the point where they, were barcoded and everything from PSA, CGC, or any of these places that do grading, whether it's comic books, baseball cards, magic cards, any and all the above. And I thought it was even cooler lately. Have you noticed the recent thing that they've been starting to grade that I can't believe? I was like, oh my God, no. Now I have piles of this stuff and I can't do anything with it because they're, millions of years old.
No, what?
They started grading video games, like old Sega cartridges. If you happen to have one that's somehow unopened, or like you have the full-on mint collectible of a Sonic the Hedgehog cartridge or something like that you had from Sega Genesis days.
Wow.
That they're doing that now. They're doing vintage toys. Tommy, you and I saw one of the G.I. Joe things at the Village Gate toy show that the guy had a full thing in the box. Not slabbed, but cased.
But cased and graded, but it's not. Yeah.
And they've even been doing like, if you went to go get your hobby box of magic cards. So if somebody somehow had a hobby box that was not open from like 1995, for example, just as saying it, they would have that same thing where all mine look like that.
My daughter has a huge box of Pokemon cards that she I don't know, she collected them. I don't know if she ever played the game, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure she's got something in there that's probably worth some bucks.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what, maybe you should go and get a new car.
We've got some collectibles running around, but I kind of in generally categorize a lot of them to like $1 to $40 range. I got no problem playing that. Put it on the table, no big deal. Then that $40 to like $500 range, that's a maybe. But as far as like taking a game piece and saying this is a $9,000 card, like that is the upper end of collectibles. And I got mine. I got out when I could. It's sad to look at it now because like a card that I got $2,000 for might be worth $8,000 now, but that gets
the
into the whole
market and inflation and how things go and economics, and people treat sports cards and magic cards, other collectibles, as stocks. That's just part of the game.
It is.
So
There's an awful lot of money tied up in it. Awful lot of
I'm going to give you a challenge for you, Will. This is a challenge, and if Craig is up for this,
sure.
Okay. So I will say that Craig and we will go together. And we will go and buy a couple of decks or just enough to where we can both have a 20 card deck for ourselves. And you teach us live how to play Magic the Gathering. Would you do that? Would you come on live and teach us how to play? If
I already have the starter decks built.
There you go. It's even better.
I've been doing this a long time.
For the people that are listening and go ahead.
I've probably taught like 20 people how to play over the years, ranging from 7-year-old kids to 40-year-old friends. And there's just so many things that are certain dynamics that you can play your first 3 games like this to kind of just figure out, how do I actually do this? And then the next 3 games are like, we're going to take these cards out because they're too easy. Now we'll put in some fun cards like tricks. Things where like, does he have that giant growth in his hand? Does he have the terror? There's all these cards and you'll start to like, there's an actual element of bluffing. Does he have it? Does he not have it? Yeah, it's and yes, I would do that instantly. I love that part of it.
Giant growth. Giant growth. It's kind of an average size growth in my hand, but that's okay.
Can we pull up can we pull up a browser, Craig?
Yeah, for what you sent us before the show.
No, look up.
Hey, clear your history first.
Yeah, sure. What you got?
Giant growth. If you can search just Magic Giant Growth Alpha, I want to see if that pulls up.
Don't pull it up on the screen.
No, this is one of my favorite Magic arts of all time. I'm
Oh wow,
hoping.
that is pretty special looking. I gotta see if I can find it big enough because they're all little graded card pieces and stuff like that. They're all itty bitty pictures.
I'm not even looking at it. I just like, oh, that's a pretty interesting
Wait for
picture.
it. Wait for it. Low adding. All right, I got it. Just got to hit the right buttons here to share the screen, which I figured I was going to do at some point.
At some point, I hope we see a giant rat up on the screen.
You're
A
going to
mouse?
see, yes.
Ooh,
There you go.
that is
that
not the
it?
one I was thinking of. That one's pretty
Giant
cool.
growth.
It came up on TG's their TCG player, so
That one's worth $9,000.
So you're
Wow.
looking for a
Here,
rat.
I'll find it.
That guy?
That one's only worth
Yeah.
$119.
That is exactly the one I was thinking of. So it's a super simple
Good
card.
deals.
We may as well go
Mhm.
over the anatomy of a card super quick.
Mhm.
It's a green card, as you can see.
Sure.
And that thing in the upper right
Mana.
that looks like a tree, that means it costs 1 green mana to play. It's an
Okay.
instant. So when I was talking about tricks, you can
Oh,
play
yeah.
an instant at any point during the game. So essentially what this means is I could have some small little chump of like an elf, right? And I would attack an elf. And if you have a dragon, you'll say, all right, my dragon is going to block your elf. And for what we can see on the table, the dragon is going to destroy the elf, right? But then I say, but wait, I have a trick. Boom. And I put giant growth on the elf. Now the elf beats the dragon, and the elf lives to tell the tale. So that kind of gets into some of the dynamic of the game of them saying like, oh, but dude, I had the better dragon. And you're like, well, I had the giant growth. It's a trick. That's what kind of gets people hooked on the game of it's a game of secret knowledge, imperfect knowledge, meaning if they have 4 cards in their hand, you don't know what you could be running up against or running into. And I think that's what gets a lot of people really tickled to play over and over and over and over again. I mean, do the permutation. Gotcha. 2 games, 2 decks, 60 cards a deck. You're never going to play the same game twice. Yeah.
Made a deal with the devil if all of a sudden something came up or it's a glitch in the matrix, deja vu, any of the above, right?
Yep.
So there's so I actually just pulled up. There is a bunch of different types of giant growth cards that range from 8 cents to like Craig had. It was
$9,000.
$9,000.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they sell.
What did I show? Almost like a Ninja Turtles drawing more than it did a Magic card.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, 30,000 functionally different cards, but 90,000 unique game pieces. I had never seen that one before. If someone played that on me during a game, I'd be like, "What is that? I don't know the art." And they'd say, "Giant growth." Cool. All right, cool, we got that. But at this point, you'll never know all the different cards and all the different arts. So it's
so now that I'm looking at this and I'm looking at some of them, now I get a little bit more of what you were talking about, because here's a giant, the one with the rat was from 94, but it was from the revised edition from 94, but then you go back and you see some that are from 93, 2018.
Yeah, so the old kind of grainy looking one with the black border, that was $119. That was from Alpha. So that's a card where you could buy a functional version of it for 5 cents. Why would you pay $119? Because it's cool, because it's collectible. I'll tell you that like the revised giant growth, that's literally a card I cracked on Christmas Day 1994. So that's always going to hold a special place in my heart.
Right, right.
I'd pay $10 for that one because I'm like, that's a cool card. That brings me way back. That's how I did it back in 7th grade at the lunch table. It's part of the collectability of the game and all the different game pieces. It's very cool. That $9,000 one, I think that was part of a secret lair.
Yeah, it's so that one I'm looking at it. It's a giant growth serial numbered secret lair drop series, and it's saying at near mint $9,628.73.
Yeah,
so secret lair
numbered to 295. So there's only 295. I didn't realize. I'm not shocked that they do that. I have that right now here in a David Wright baseball card that I just
Ah,
picked out the other day. That is numbered to 199.
I can't see it.
So
Is that David Wright
there's
with the huge batting helmet
Yeah.
on?
no, not with that one. It's just a regular everyday.
The
But
Guardian helmet.
I've been
The Great
collecting this
Gazoo?
archive set stuff, and the whole point of the archive set stuff is it's meant to look like old vintage Topps cards. So
Yep.
they pick 3 different years and they put it in one set, and they put all the new players and old players on that old framing. So this was one I pulled the other day, and I'm like, oh shit, it's numbered 199. There you go. But
So for a
that's
while
become
there,
a really big thing in this collecting period.
Yeah.
The individually numbered stuff is always the sought after things. Tommy, you see that every once in a while with like you'll get a Star Wars toy that's a very limited run. It's the chase model, right?
Right. So that's one of the things that back in the day when I was actually really heavily collecting action figures, especially the Star Wars days, is learning all about the mint on card. I mean, I used to subscribe to Toy Fair so I could see what variants were going up in price and what was going down, like Luke Skywalker in the pilot outfit, and he had the long blade, the long saber, as opposed to, I learned a lot from all of that stuff. And now it's like, and Craig knows, now that Disney owns Star Wars, they had already made it clear they will never make a Slave Leia toy ever again. So anything that's Slave Leia now is actually worth a little bit of money because Disney won't put out any new merchandise that is Slave Leia. So
what about Jabba the Hutt mugs? Are they still making those?
they still make Jabba the Hutt, but they don't make
You
the
got
Slave
the mug
Leia.
right there, don't you?
Yes, I do have my mug. But that's that's one of those things that it also is who's the owning entity of the intellectual property too is what
So
drives it.
Magic does have small doses of that. Way back in the day, there was a set based on the Arabian Nights. Like the story, 1001 Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
And they put a card in there called Jihad. Jihad meant that your army would attack their army. And for a lot of reasons, they discontinued that and they won't print it ever again. And I think if you go try and search that up on any official Wizard site, it's going to have like a black box, like image redacted type thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's your controversy you were looking for, Tommy.
But those cards are somewhere out there. Somebody has them, and they're probably worth thousands of dollars.
Jihad's not that insane. I mean, we could look it up, but I have 2 of them, and I think it's somewhere in the 300 range.
Okay.
Because
but either way,
for anything, there's collectability
enough of them were printed, right?
And playability. So if it's something super collectible, you'll get premium this. If it's super playable, you get premium this. But when it's both, that's your force multiplier of like, yeah. And that was the Black Lotus earlier in the thread. That's a card that's super rare. They're never going to print again, and it's super awesome as a game piece to actually play the game. So when you check both those boxes, it's a cubed root multiplier for price.
Probably.
I'm curious. I kind of want to look up and see if Jihad's around.
While you're doing that, to that point, well, we do like to keep the show an hour, and obviously you've been a wealth of knowledge, and we've been having a blast with you and everything like that. But I want to make sure I give you the opportunity to get anything that you would like to make sure that you mentioned during this show out. And then in the other part of that, I know you got some cards there. I'm curious at least to see what might be in one of those packs that you might open. Go ahead.
I have to share this. Does that mean
that's also
thanks, Chris?
When I come and do the in real life teaching you guys how to play Magic, I do it in the Slave Leia outfit. I thought
that was a con that we didn't hear.
I just thought you knew that. I thought you guys knew that.
Tonight.
I don't need the full effect. You can just teach.
So Craig, you were mentioning packs. And because you always do crack a pack for your baseball cards, I got a few. I actually swung by Millennium this morning and picked up a few. So we have Dominaria United. So this is
There you
like
go.
classic fantasy. This is monsters, dragons, tree folk, minotaurs. This
See
is
if
a
I can get Will on a big screen here.
this is a set. These are 5 different packs from 5 different sets. This is foundations. So this is like for beginners, newbies. Bloomborough. Bloomborough, you can see that dude's a little like mouse. Yeah. This is a set that came out last
There
year.
you
Like mouse, rats, ferrets, otters, bats, cute animals. This is something they haven't done before, and they probably only did it this one time. But again, it's new, unique, and it kind of pulls more people in.
Mhm.
This one is the Brothers War. And this set, all these sets are different. They all kind of have their own theme. So this is more like mechanized robots, steampunk vibes. And then this one is Murders at Karlov Manor. And that's more like detective.
That sounds like Clue.
Yeah. Actually, let's crack it open. Let's see what we get here.
There you go.
So while you're cracking it open, I'm going to ask the question now. Can you only play the deck from cards from that series, or can you mix and match to build a deck?
Definitely more mix and match. There
Okay.
are some tournaments where they might say you get 3 packs of Murders at Karlov, and that's it. Most of the times when we're playing around what I call kitchen table magic, that means like me, Charlie, Jameson, Garrett, drinking a beer, hanging out on a Saturday or Saturday night, it's much more free form. Like, as long as what you're doing is agreed upon by the group and fared, it's cool. But if you're going to a big tournament of like 150 people, they may dictate everyone gets 3 packs of these, and that's all you get, and you can't add new cards from any outside pool.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
So it's got all the different flavors for all the different people. So what do we get?
But to your point, you're getting something different every time. Ooh, you got something shiny.
Yeah, we got a shiny foily on the job. So that gives all your creatures a +2/+1 bonus.
Nice.
Ooh. Well, where's that whiskey? I got a mythic rare.
There you
A little
go.
bit of the
You got to
anatomy
get
of
your
the card.
buddies.
See how that's like that gold copperish color?
Mhm.
That means it's a mythic rare. So if this was a Magic
Okay.
Weekend, I would have to do a shot right now. No ifs, no buts.
So is that like we were talking numbered cards a second ago? Is that like the step just below getting a numbered card?
It is. And some of those mythics will be
Okay.
40 to 80 bucks. I don't know this one, but I'm going to guess it's in like the $5 range, just as a swag. And we should have paid a little bit more attention
Worth
to
a shot. That's what I heard.
these dudes right here. Like, that's a common. So you got black is
Okay.
common, silver is uncommon, gold is rare, and then that copperish color is mythic rare. So, oh, Eric is telling me that the mythic rule still applies. I will. I still have to pull dad duty, so after I accomplish that, I will do a shot of Buffalo Trace and send you the picture, as long as it's acceptable to the team.
Oh,
Oh
good
yeah, we
stuff.
cracked a pack. We got 15 cards, and I'll look up that mythic and see what it is. But that's half the fun. Sometimes I got friends that just like to sit there like a degenerate and just crack packs. Not even to play a game, just
Yeah.
crack.
Like me on Sunday nights.
Awesome.
So, but that is a cool part to the whole game, right? When you get into the trading card game stuff, like you said, it's not just playing the game. Like if you're just showing up at Millennium Games and buying a board game, you're getting like you mentioned, a bunch of different things, because you're going to get people that are interested in Magic the Gathering that might be more in the collecting and selling ballpark, that are happy doing that part, ripping packs. It's something they're interested in because it's more in the fantasy realm, for sports or random creatures like Pokemon, whatever it might be. But then you also have that point that you can build into the game and just start running with it. You have this whole wonderful lore, it sounds like, too, that we didn't get a chance to really get into, but I will look forward to hearing from that, especially if Tommy and I are going to get the lesson from you, Deckmaster.
I want to do this. I want to try this. I want to actually go through a game. And again, we only scratch the surface on a lot of topics, and then we end up going, God, we got to come back to this, because there's a lot to it. There's history. We're talking 30 some odd years now of Magic the Gathering, if not more, and we barely scratched the surface. So I want to actually go through a game and learn the mechanics, help our audience who may be kind of interested and kind of walking through it with us, so that maybe we open up a door to some new fandom out there of these collector card games, that especially one that's been around for so long. So
I mean, Tommy, we talked about it in the beginning, but Venn diagram, the overlap of people that like action figures, that like Spawn, that like D&D, that like comics, just over the past 30 years, it's proven out to me, at least, the people that like that stuff like Magic. And there's a lot of friends to be made, and the social element is just so huge, and it's so fun. It's such a big deal. It's part of what makes it sticky.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Will. I'm looking forward to you teaching us, because, again, I want to learn how to do this. I think it would be, again, educational, and especially if people are watching and kind of walking through it with us, they may, we may be opening a door for all new fans. And guess what? You'll be their teacher.
One or the other.
You'll probably be the teacher to more than two people.
I've taught more. I'll teach more. It's fun. It's a fun game to learn.
Awesome. Awesome.
So on that note, is there anything else you would like to end the show with here, Will, other than like we were talking about?
One tieback, but it's actually two things. We talked about the secret lairs. Do yourself a favor, anyone that's watching, and just Google Magic Secret Lair Ghostbusters. Because I know Craig and Tommy, you saw that, and you're like, whoa. And here's a callback to, I think, was it one episode or 2 episodes ago that you guys did Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yep.
There's a secret lair out there for Monty Python as well. And it's just...
there it is.
See, so now I'm glad you said that, Will. I'm glad you mentioned the one about Monty Python, because you may be opening up the door to Kate, who's another fan of the show, who was our resident Monty Python expert. She may not know about the Magic the Gathering cards that are Monty Python themed. So she may be like, you may sell her on something that's completely foreign to her, and then now she's gonna start having games.
So there's this cool Magic card called Birds of Paradise. It's very good, fits in a lot of decks. What they ended up doing is they call it a reskin. Like what you see here is they took the original card, Birds of Paradise. The new card has the same functionality, but they launched it as European Swallow and African Swallow. So you can collect the 2 different versions. And for the people that are into Magic and into Monty Python.
But if they're carrying a coconut, how fast can they go?
Well, I don't know that. Ah!
We already got one.
They say they've already got one. I'm glad you guys didn't have me on that episode, because I would have just been quoting it nonstop. The whole thing.
Well, there you go. But to that point, it would be safe to assume that the Holy Hand Grenade is probably the best one in that deck.
1, 2, 5.
Yeah, and just remember, 5 is outright.
It is.
2 is not enough.
When we get together to do a practice game, I will show you the Monty Python cards in real life.
I'm looking at them right now. One is "'Tis But a Scratch."
The dreaded Black Beast of
we want
Extravaganza. It's ran out of steam.
Bring out your dad.
That's fun. Well played.
That's awesome.
I'm glad to see that somebody else is having just as much fun with fandom as we are on this show, and they're putting it into something as cool as what you get to work with. So,
can I have one more closing thought?
Go for it.
I know we're time.
Where's yours?
If you ever have to convince your parents why Magic is so great, the vocab on Magic cards is just redonkulous.
Yeah.
I made a list because
the worst case scenario, you got a vocabulary study for younglings going on.
Cockatrice, basilisk, gargoyle, bifurcate, buoyancy, pestilence, doppelganger, Yakelhops, juggernaut, armistice, ballista. It's one of those things that it's such a good game, such good interaction, and like I can legitimately point to words in the English language I know that I wouldn't know if I hadn't read it on a Magic card. So +1 for education.
No, that's awesome
Oddly,
because
you and I have something in common.
I've
I
got the
learned a lot of
words.
those from reading comic books.
Yep.
But those are garbage. There's nothing good in them.
When will
Well
I
played.
ever have to know what alabaster is? Nah, but you might. But you might.
It's okay.
I know what alabaster is because my sister-in-law is a artist, and
Okay.
she often sculpts in alabaster.
Okay.
There you go. Check.
Checkmate.
So, on that note, Tommy, you let us in. Are you going to take us home, or you want me to do it?
You know what? You take us out.
I won't put too much on your plate for one night.
Let's see. Are we doing closing remarks? Or are we just going out, or how are we doing this?
I think, Will, you got anything else?
I promised my friend Jameson, who I've played thousands of Magic games with, that I would say, Notre Dame, go Irish. College football tonight.
This is the only time I'm
Go
ever
Irish.
going to be. This is the only time I am an Irish fan because I absolutely, positively hate Ohio State because I am a Michigan man. And this will be the only time you'll hear me say, go Irish.
It's
So,
going right
go
now. They
Irish.
just put Rudy in. Rudy's running back a kick for a touchdown.
So, on that note, did you want me to run with it?
Go for it. Go run away. Run away.
So, first thing, run away. Will Cole, pleasure having you on the show. We're definitely going to have another one. And like I said, maybe you're going to have to be our first remote once we get our new toys working. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you again for coming on the show. It is greatly appreciated.
Looking forward to
Thank you,
coming
Will.
back. Thanks, guys.
So you can hang out for a minute if you want. If not, peace out. But on that note, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. And we were so happy to see everybody in the comments section this evening. It was great to be able to throw some random into this conversation, to be able to talk. And thank you very much for the random insights of Will and the random comments and all the other fun stuff that came in. It was a good time. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you do hit us up on those live chats. Normally on Sunday nights, but there's this whole Buffalo Bills playoff push thing going on. So we are going to 100% be this time slot again next week, Monday, 7 o'clock Eastern time on 127. Yes, I did that math because today's the 20th. I'm really good with numbers. But on that note, on any social media, you can find at TC Random Fandom. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get those podcasting pleasures from. Somehow still on TikTok and some still all the rest of the social media as well. And we will see you next week, everybody. Cheers. Game on.
One thing. Stop. Don't push the button. Next week's episode, Tim from Trivia Chat. We are talking all things game shows. Just remember, we are on Mondays because of the Bills. So yes, Monday. Tim from Trivia Chat talking all things game shows. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in there.
Totally forgot that one. Thank you. Save.
Yep.
Anyway, game shows next week. Cheers, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.
Good night, everybody.